All right, welcome to Truth, Culture, Life. I am Royce Hood, and we are joined today by Sierra Heitkamp. Sierra from North Dakota, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing today?
Excellent. And Sierra, we've also have Father Michael Orsi from Naples. Father, how are you doing?
Marvelous, just marvelous.
And we have a very special guest from SBA. Sierra, why don't you introduce our special guest?
All right. So I met Adam when we were working on a few different issues in the state of North Dakota with some court case with the trigger ban. And so we were able to meet with that. And I'm not totally sure about Adam's vast background, but if you want to deep dive into that, that would be much appreciated.
Sure.
Yeah,
So
go ahead, Adam. Go ahead.
Sure, you bet. So I am originally from the West Coast, originally from Oregon, immigrated to the United States of America in Nebraska a couple of years ago. Long history as a lobbyist and a state legislative staffer. Worked really heavily into the business lobby. Was really active with home builders and chambers of commerce and realtors. Became really obvious that I needed to go a different direction, that I was being led in a different direction, so that I could lobby not just for things that were just things that I agreed with, but things that I believed in. And this being the preeminent issue, the preeminent civil rights issue of our days, this is where I was led to. My faith led me here.
So Adam, you are a lobbyist that focuses on pro-life issues predominantly?
Solely. Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America is a one-issue organization. We lobby for pro-life laws in the states as well as in the federal government. For a long time, our organization was primarily, actually almost solely, centered around federal lobbying, federal legislation, trying to save unborn children at the federal level. It became really clear that we were getting closer and closer to being able to strike down that dreadful court decision that made it so that states didn't have a say in the lives of their citizens in this issue, that their citizens and their elected officials didn't have a role. So in 2014, 2015, SBA added one state's part-time state director who focused on all the states, because really she was completely limited in what she could do. In 2019, seeing the writing on the wall that maybe we were getting even closer, one more full-time staffer was added, and the other staffer was made full-time.
All right, so hold on. So so SBA, obviously that's a huge organization, and one of the things I love that SBA is involved with is the scorecards for political candidates, which I get a lot of questions as an attorney from different people like, hey, are we allowed to be political as 501c3s? How, and so is that done through your C4 or your C3? Do you know?
I believe it's done through our C4. We do have a C4, we have a C3. So we look at the situation that we happen to be in at the time. And I don't want to speak out of turn, so I don't know exactly which one we use to do our scorecards. But our scorecard is a very important thing, very important tool for our congressional candidates and for our members of Congress. Whatever we score down, someone's down, we make sure 100% that they know beforehand that we're going to score on it, that they know it's coming, and so that there's never any surprises. So,
I want to jump to Father real quick. Father, when you're what we're talking about is the SBA scorecard. So and this isn't the main topic for today, obviously, but I love it because, where does a candidate stand on a particular issue? Father, are you afraid to talk about, I don't want to get you in trouble, but when you're, giving your homilies.
Come on, how long have you known me and how many times have I been in trouble?
I think you're pretty much in trouble every time I talk to you. And so, look, there's one thing to say, go vote for this person. Right. There's another thing to say, we believe that life is sacred and life should be protected. And by the way, that candidate over there believes that partial birth abortion is a good thing.
No problem. You see, there are many organizations, even locally, that give out the scorecard. Now, a lot of the churches don't want to hand them out. There is no problem with handing them out. You are not endorsing a candidate. You're simply showing a scorecard, how the candidate answered the questions. Some candidates don't answer the questions, So you simply leave it blank. Did not answer. No response. No problem. The other thing that a lot of people forget, when we're talking about, your 501c and all 503b and all of these things, I don't want to go through the whole history of it. But the bottom line is, it's only going to say you cannot give somebody a statement on how much they donated to the church and get a tax write-off. That's all that is. And as a matter of fact, it's only been used once since 1954. A little church in upstate New York said, don't vote for Bill Clinton on a billboard. They got it taken away and they got it back within 3 or 4 months. It's a joke. They intimidate people with this. And to be quite honest, not to insult anybody, how many people give that much money that's going to make that much of a difference on their income tax? Who's kidding whom? Make my day. Come and get me.
That's why Father Orsi is always in trouble, because he just doesn't care. Sierra, so tell us a little bit, and I'll let you ask Adam some questions. You guys are working on legislation or lobbying in North Dakota?
Correct. Yep. So I am lobbying for North Dakota Right to Life this upcoming legislative session. So I also am a lobbyist with one issue. And we balance that line between our state PAC, our 501c3, which does educational programming, and then the 501c4, which is me with legislative lobbying. So I definitely understand it's a balance act, trying to make sure that you fit everything in the right place with funding. And then on top of that, we also do our state scorecard for lawmakers, which is very interesting. And we pick issues relating to life from conception to natural death.
No, that's great. And so Adam, what successes, or let me ask you this, actually, we'll get into successes later. What is the big picture thing that you're working on right now post Dobbs?
Well, we actually still have some states that really don't have protection for unborn children that should. My home state here in Nebraska, for example, those states that were really focusing on getting those protections, we have to get those protections in place really before we can go any further than that. There's some really great states out there that have all those protections in place. We are really excited for them, but now there's going to be more babies. There's going to be more moms, and we need to make sure that they're going to be supported. So there's states out there. We're passing a pro-life safety net, or what we colloquially call moms and babies policies, making sure that they have the support network that they need, that now that they're going to be having their baby, that they know that they're going to be supported all the way through, that we really show that we're not just pro-birth, as the abortion industry likes to call us. We are pro-life. We are wholly pro-life. And there's some states that are, in fact, I think all my states, I handle the Western region. I think almost all the states that I'm part of are looking at some level of pro-life safety net policies going forward in this next session.
You know, that's
so go ahead.
That's a wonderful thing. It really has to be done, because a lot of people say, oh yeah, pro-life until the baby's born, then nobody cares. And that's a lie. We have many organizations that help a pregnant woman through the pregnancy, and then to help them after the pregnancy to supply the child with food and clothing and some financial help with maybe rent, whatever the case may be. So that's a great thing to do. And the message has to get out there.
So when you're working with other states, Adam, have you had any issues with kind of making sure that you're in every state? Are there any issues that you need more help in? How does that kind of look with the playing field of the whole United States?
Well, we don't come in and just dive into a state and start making phone calls to legislators. That's just not how we work. We don't have any chapters like Right to Life has local chapters. We come in and partner with the local organizations, with the local advocates because it's their state. They're on the ground. A lot of these folks have been literally working this issue in their state houses for 50 years. It would be really presumptuous and probably self-defeating for me to come in who's maybe Sierra, I'm sorry, I've literally never been to North Dakota, ever. It would be ridiculous for me to come into North Dakota, having never ever been there, and say, here's all the policies, let me tell you what you need to do. That's just not how we roll. So we we build the relationships with the advocates on the ground. We also have the relationships with governors. We have relationships with building relationships with state legislators as well, attorneys general. But we go in and work with the advocates because they know what their states need. They know the intricacies, the special relationships that are in their states. So in some states, all I have to do is come in and be part of the coalition. They have just a well-oiled machine. Some states, they're building the plane while they're flying it, and they need more leadership and more help. And so we're happy to provide that. What we consider ourselves is the folks who are batting cleanup. We're the folks that are supporting those people that are on the ground. If you want us to come and write a letter, or if you want us to come and be on the ground, or through our Charlotte Lozier Institute, which is our C3, that is an educational research arm of Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, we can have experts on the ground to testify, OBGYNs, board certified OBGYNs, medical doctors, attorneys as well. We can do whatever a state needs. So if we're not wanted, we're generally pretty careful about what we do. We want to be a support network. We don't want to take over, because you folks have been on the ground in your states a heck of a longer than we have.
So Adam, if you could tell us a little bit about what sort of legislation you're pushing for. I mean, can you give us an example of anything specific, how that helps the pro-life issue?
Well, I don't want to get ahead of our partners. There's a lot. This is right now legislation drafting season. I'm sure so you're very well aware of that. So I don't want to say we're pushing something and then it not happen and then we've disappointed.
Give us a 30,000-foot view. I mean, are we talking about, are you dealing with issues that deal with mail order abortion pills? Are you dealing with consent issues? Are you dealing with multi-jurisdictional interstate commerce issues? What sort of things are you focused on in terms of trying to see change? And you don't have to tell us a specific state, but we would like you to eventually.
We eventually will. Probably not today, but I'll give you some policies that are being floated throughout the states. One thing that we're seeing around corporate America, around a lot of our states, unfortunately, is that hey, we'll pay for you if you're in a state with a lot of pro-life protections. We'll pay for you to go across state lines and get an abortion. We're not going to. We aren't going to support restricting travel of women. That's a constitutional disaster for us. That's not a direction we're going to go. But what we do want to make sure happens is that if you're going to pay for a woman to go across state lines, if you're going to pay for her to do that, well, certainly a policy should be that you're going to give her whatever she needs to actually have her baby. So I know there is one bill, I'm not going to speak out of turn because it has been in the press in some of the states, that would require that if you're going to put in your benefits, the benefit that you're going to pay to go across the line to kill your child, you also have a company have to pay for 16 weeks of paid family leave.
Well, you know,
so
that's
you're going to pay for one, you're going to pay for the other.
Yeah, no, look, this is a great point. I'll turn it over. I mean, the state of Illinois, for example, has, I think it's like a 10-week maternity and paternity leave. Think about what that cost is, right? So a lot of people are like, oh, how nice. Google's going to pay me to, $5,000 across state lines to have an abortion. It's an economic, I mean, they're not doing it because they care.
Right.
They're doing it because it's cheaper for them.
Right. So here's $5,000. You go across the state line. You take 3 or 4 days of vacation. You come back on Monday. Right. As opposed to 16 weeks of actually having to not only pay salary, but then have to pay somebody else to come in to do the work that's not getting done. They don't care about reproductive rights, quote unquote. They care about the bottom line, and it's a heck of a lot less expensive to pay for somebody to go get an abortion than it is to actually pay for them to care for their child.
Absolutely.
So that's one policy that we're seeing a lot. That's the paid family leave is one example. Another one is there being a tax on companies that do that. There's a whole kind of gamut of policies around that. You mentioned chemical abortion, the pills that coming in the mail. This is probably the biggest challenge that we face as a movement. is how do we deal with these pills that are coming over state line and quite often coming out of the country. We've often seen these brown envelopes that have been postmarked from New Delhi coming in, and Lord knows what's in them. I mean,
curry's in there.
Curry. Well, yes. But one of the questions is, would you ever take pills that you don't know where they actually came from? I mean, remove the abortion side of it altogether. There's a massive fentanyl problem in the United States. Are you just going to take a pill like that you just don't know what it is? So one of the biggest challenges we have, of course, is these right now, as of now, mifepristone, the first pill that one would take to actually kill the baby, is an FDA approved drug. So I'll let Royce, you're the attorney, I'll let you take care of the difficulties around the FDA preemption. But there are a lot of things that states can do in heavily regulating what these pills, how these pills are taken and how they're used, making sure that you ban telemedicine. That telemedicine can never be used as a way to prescribe these pills. You have to have an in-person distribution of the pills, that they have to be taken in person, that you don't just send somebody home with a second dose. That it used to be in a lot of places that drugs, when you have a law around drugs, you would regulate them by saying anything that the FDA says, that's what you follow. And there are still states, pro-life states, who have that on their books. But the problem is that these pills were not approved in a proper way. If you take a look at how an FDA approves a normal drug and look how they approve mifepristone, it's night and day. In fact, Alliance Defending Freedom, ADF, just filed not too long ago a lawsuit against the FDA saying that this was done wrong. You need to withdraw this approval. So if that approval were to go away, that would be a whole huge game changer for the pro-life movement, and states would just flat out be able to ban them totally.
Yeah, but Adam, FDA has been screwing up a lot of things lately. I mean, what about? I mean, they're like on a slippery slope. I'm going to punch Fauci in the nose when I get him.
Well, I guess, Father, I'm a one-issue organization, so you'll have to be the punching for us all.
Royce, I got a lot of issues.
No, just if you guys want to have some entertaining reading, just Google times FDA got it wrong. And there are there's 32 million results on Google. The very first result is CNN of all places. Nearly a third of FDA approved drugs had problem study finds. So that's back from 2017, pre-pandemic. But whoa. And
Royce, FDA approval doesn't mean that much these days. I mean,
well,
come on.
No, and it's the same thing, sadly. I mean, I think back to my grandparents who, I mean, literally, if the government came out and said, hey, this is good, they believed it. If a study from doctors and a medical institute came out and said this is bad, they believed it. And now I feel like every bureaucracy that we have in DC has been taken over by people that are ideologues. And they don't know, it's not necessarily fair and balanced. I mean, we saw this in the pandemic, right? It's blasphemy to even question whether something's good or bad. I mean, and again, we're focusing on pro-life issues. I don't want to get too distracted, but I mean, don't get me started on things like gender affirming care and stuff like that, right? I mean, at what point do we as citizens have the ability to stand up and question these things, Adam? And so that's why the work that I think you're talking about makes so much sense. Empowering the states, empowering people through their elected representatives in their own states, which have state sovereignty to regulate the safety and welfare of their own citizens. I mean, that's how we handle these bureaucracies that are out of control. I'll stop talking and turn it over to you all.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Bryce, I got to tell you something. We have this great governor here in Florida, and he is going to have an investigation of COVID. This is like one of the top governors in the whole wide world, and I might endorse him for further higher office. might.
After you're done getting into a fist fight with, I won't say the name, then yeah, I love it.
So one question I wanted to ask back kind of to state legislation, Adam, would be regarding issues with language. Have you seen a lot of that concern in other states? And what I mean by concern is like in the state of North Dakota, with the overturn of Roe v. Wade, we had the bring on of the trigger ban that would ban abortion with certain circumstances. But we also had other laws on the books regarding abortion. And we've seen now that we have some issues with discrepancies and definitions of certain words. And then on top of that, we've seen, groups like AP who just came out with the redefinition of certain words regarding the idea of life, abortion, pro-choice, what have you. And so I just wanted to kind of get your take on how that's also affecting other states, if that's a big deal.
Well, I'll certainly say that states affect states. No, we don't live, we don't exist in a vacuum. When one state does one thing, a legislator generally will get an idea and say, hey, that's a great idea. Maybe we'll do that in my state. In terms of having older laws that hit the books, that come back on the books, that conflict, when you have a conflicting definition, that definition is generally just applying to the legislation that is addressed in the law that is that the definition is in, unless their definition is referring back to some other statute. When you have them conflicting, when the statutes conflict, generally the newer law is going to take precedence. I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with doing tweaks, some very minor tweaks, but you have to be careful in terms of what your state house, what your assembly is like. If you've got, like the folks in North Dakota, massive supermajorities, opening the bill to make a few tweaks to fix some of those smaller things, not a big deal. When you have a situation like you have in Arizona, for example, where you have a very unfriendly governor coming into office, and you have essentially a nearly 50-50 legislature in both houses, you probably don't want to touch anything, because as soon as you open up one piece of legislation, it's going to get amended 8 days from Sunday. So it really would depend on where you're at, how much you want to reopen things as opposed to just let them sit.
Adam and Sierra, I wonder, it sounds to me like a game of strategy, right? Just because you can do something today doesn't necessarily mean it's the smartest chess move. Is that, that makes sense to me.
It absolutely is. And we have wonderful pro-life champions who want to just create the 300-page omnibus bill to do everything they possibly could ever think of regarding abortion policy. And if it were me, I wouldn't have a job tomorrow. I would do just snap my fingers and make it so there's no abortion ever, and I would go and sell cars. There would be no reason for me to exist. But that's just not where we're at. We as a movement have really embraced, over the objection of some of our colleagues, an incrementalist game, that we continue to make step by step, little by little gains in our policies, in supporting life, in making sure we protect as many babies as we possibly can. And that's been successful. Here we are. And I think we've seen this on the other side, in other aspects, in other issues. Little by little, they boil the frog. And that's worked very well for them if anybody hasn't been paying attention. It works well for us too. And we continue to, because if we can go and just pass all these wonderful pro-life legislation, but if we don't have the hearts and minds of voters, all the people that we elect are going to get tossed out, and all the work that we did is going to get overturned. We have to bring the people along with us. And Royce, you mentioned that this is allowing the people to in the states to make policies that are important to them. I think it's particularly important and the court said very clearly that this isn't just at the states. We have a lot of pro-life states that are doing great work, and I'm happy to be part of it. Sierra's happy to be part of it. But we've got folks like Gavin Newsom out there who are putting billboards up in pro-life states saying, hey, come to California. Abortion's cool here. We love it. 2 thumbs up. we have to stop abortion in California too, guys. We have to. And
Mhm.
the only way that we're going to be able to do that is at the federal level. And so in order to
hold on, Adam. Yeah, you're talking about something. I just want to jump in, and Sierra, you had mentioned this too. So hold your thought, Adam, and I want to go right
Sure.
back to it. You were talking about changing hearts and minds, and Sierra had brought this up earlier. The Associated Press just came out with this abortion topical guide. Can you guys see the screen?
Mhm.
Yeah, and so this is phenomenal. When you talk about incremental gains on the pro-life side, the other side is working on the same strategy. And we see this with organizations that are supposed to be unbiased, that are supposed to be neutral journalism, right? You're supposed to be objective and in reporting facts. But here we go. Abortion topical guide. AP actually provides guidance for anybody that's a part of the Associated Press. And we know this is basically just about all of mainstream media in the United States, defining proper terms. We don't want to refer to something as a fetal heartbeat bill. It's too humanizing to discuss a heartbeat and fetal pain. I love this one. It's based on when does fetal pain start? Well, we're not sure. So we don't really want to talk about fetal pain. Avoid using terms like unborn baby or unborn child, unless you're talking about a mother that lost her baby. That's okay. She lost her baby, but if she aborted her baby, we're not going to use the term baby in that context. And so I'd encourage you guys to take a look at this, but this is how the other side has their incremental wins. They control the narrative. They control the talking points. This one's really great. Planned Parenthood. Not all services, including abortions, are offered at all clinics. So describe Planned Parenthood as an abortion clinic only if that is known to be the case. So in other words, if you're referring to Planned Parenthood, let's talk about all the other things that they say they provide, which on the pro-life side, we actually realize they don't provide a lot of these other things. Anyway, Adam, is there a way, again, you're on the legislation side, and maybe this is a question for Sierra or Father. How do we answer? This isn't legal. I mean, the AP can put out whatever it wants. How do we, as just citizens, address this and make people aware of, if they're looking at the headlines and they see these terms, these are being planted?
Well, I think we as citizens, the folks that, and even we as legislators, we can't legislate language. We can't legislate speech. The AP can say what they want. But what we can do is say the truth. We can speak. We can always call it an unborn baby, unborn child. We can always refer to Planned Parenthood as an abortion clinic. We can always do what's right. We can always say that the things that are right. And I wish it was just the AP, and I wish it was just the media, because we could just blast them and say they're just nuts and they're tools of the other side. Unfortunately, even the medical community, that for most of the time has been very nuanced and neutral on the issue of abortion, because they realize that they've got members, the medical associations have members on both sides of this issue. They've gone full on pro-abortion. They've gone full on. And it's unfortunate because a lot of our legislators are not used to that. A lot of our legislators are used to the nuanced, quiet, the softer, gentler medical community. And so when they have the medical lobbyists coming into their state houses and saying these things, they start thinking, well, gosh, these guys are doctors. Well, doctors are always smarter than I am. So we'll have to listen to them. We have, as an organization, really pushed the Charlotte Lozier Institute. That is our research arm. If you in state houses, for example, are hearing that ACOG, the American College of Gynecologists, are coming in to testify, please let us know. Let us know, and we will be able to bring in pro-life, pro-truth OBGYNs to your state houses to testify, to tell them the truth. If you need research papers or anything like that, that's how we're challenging it. We're challenging it by always being in the culture. We can't just go in our little corner and say, well, we're just pro-lifers, we're going to stay over here. We have to go out into the culture. We have to go out in the culture and challenge the culture and challenge the status quo. That means you're going to lose some friends. You want to do it charitably, of course, but that's what we do. we go out there in the culture and we tell the truth.
Hey, Father knows something about losing friends, I think, right, Father?
You know, I lost my miter.
Yeah. You know, I've known Father for, I don't know, over 10 years or something. And again, I mentioned this, I think the first time we ever recorded. What I love about this program, Truth, Culture, Life, is we've got Sierra. She's like, I think she just turned 21 or something. You've got 25. All right. You've got Father Orsi. Father Orsi, nobody actually on earth knows how old he really is. It's a mystery. And I'm almost 40, which is scary. And my wife gets jealous because I have a baby face. But yeah, so we're hitting this like generational divide, which is amazing. And so Adam, we really appreciate your perspective, and I'm sure there's so much more we could talk about. Sierra, I'm going to give you the last word with asking him and sort of wrapping up the interview today.
Yeah, so one more thing I wanted to mention and just kind of get your perspective on it. Somebody had, I think it was Royce, mentioned getting involved in the culture, or maybe it was you, Adam. And one issue we actually had come up in the state of North Dakota last year was the idea of fourth trimester care. And I don't know, have any of you on the call heard of fourth trimester?
You introduced me to the concept. At first, it sounds nice. Okay, yeah, you're going to provide care for, after the baby's alive for 3 months or so, but there's a nefarious purpose to it.
Well, and that's how it was kind of pitched to the lawmakers. What they wanted to do was create September 23rd, fourth trimester care day. And the reason for it was they wanted us, the general population, to be aware that when a woman has a baby, a human woman, their infants are so dependent on a woman that we need to be raising more awareness. There's postpartum depression, all good things. But then we did some more digging and we found out in some countries in Europe, they're actually doing fourth trimester abortions.
Oh, wait, stop. Run that by me again.
Yeah.
Infanticide. It's infanticide, Father Orsi.
Oh my dear God, have mercy on us. Holy cow.
And the reason we were able to actually figure this out is because one of the lawmakers from North Dakota is Norwegian, and she still has a lot of connections over in Europe. We did some more research, and they're finding that in some countries up to 5 years, but it's usually not that extreme. They'll do it up to a year, up to 2 years. If you have a baby and you decide, hey, I'm really not fit to be a mother, you can actually petition to euthanize your child. So this idea of bringing up the wordage, fourth trimester, and getting everybody used to it and getting everybody, integrated into it. Have you heard of that in other states, Adam?
Well, no, and thank God.
Oh.
But I think this is it's an insight into how extreme the other side is. We have to admit, and we always want to be friends. We want to be friendly. We don't want conflict. Humans generally don't like conflict, but we have to acknowledge what we're up against. And we have to continuously point out that the other side wants abortion without any limits, and they want taxpayers to pay for it. And generally we say abortion up to birth. It sounds like it's even further. But people do not, when the average human, imagine American, hears what the other side truly wants, they are absolutely disgusted. They are scandalized. So we have to continue to point out how extreme the other side is. If we keep hammering this home, we can't keep hammering home the talking point. And I say talking point, but it's real. It's real. That the other side wants, they are for abortion for any reason with zero regulation up to birth, and they want taxpayers to pay for it. You keep going in that direction and telling that truth, it's gonna hit home.
So real quick, yeah, Father, I want to give you the last word, but just to hit home on that point, the AP, that guidance, they want to avoid, they say, do not use the term late-term abortion. That is defined by the American College of OBGYNs as 41 weeks and 6 days of gestation, and abortion does not happen in this period. So instead, use the term abortion later in pregnancy. So pay attention to the headlines, because this is what you're going to see. Father, you've got the last word.
this is, you got to call it what it is. This is evil. This is the devil. I mean, what are we fooling around with? You're trying to be nice with these people? You can't name it. It's evil. And these people are going to rot in hell for fourth trimester abortion, whatever they're calling it. They're bad.
Mhm.
No, I agree. The people pushing it are bad. I think, and so many women have been lied to and deceived and made to feel like they frankly have no worth, and that their abortion is what they need in order to have any worth. I mean, how many celebrities have we heard recently come out and say, oh, if it wasn't for my 7th abortion, I would have never been a famous celebrity, right? I mean, come on, these people live in the Twilight Zone anyway, but I feel so bad for so many of the women who fall for this stuff because they're not getting information like what we're sharing here today.
Mhm.
What I will say, if I just say one last thing, is that what this does show is that for years and years, for 50 years now, we ran into the rhetorical brick wall of Roe. We couldn't talk about it. We weren't allowed to talk about it. And when we talked about it, we were dismissed because you're crazies, Roe's the law of the land. We're talking about this now. We're exposing how extreme the other side is. We can talk about this, and we're taken seriously because we're passing legislation. We're getting it done. So we get to have these conversations. And the more that we have these conversations, the more that we're going to continue to change hearts and minds, and the more that we are eventually going to win this culture, because we have to, because there is no other option for us.
That's
Absolutely.
amazing. And, one more thing I wanted to bring up, and last word, I'm so sorry, Royce.
No, you're fine. We have time.
In the state of North Dakota, working with Right to Life and working with Adam has been so beneficial for us, even bouncing off ideas of legislation and just kind of regrouping and having that outside perspective. So if there's any other state organizations listening that are pro-life and they may need that resources or may want to talk to a group like SBA, how can they get in contact with you? Can they go on the website? What's the best way?
Well, as you can understand, most of our information is not on the website. Doxing is a thing. Would thoroughly encourage. Do you guys have a connection that people can reach out to you and you can just give my information out?
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Happy to talk to anybody. At any time. You can go on the website and just call the main switchboard. It will get to me if you just say what state you're in. Otherwise,
Perfect.
if you want to reach out to Sierra has my contact information and can always give it out.
Great. Well, this is great. Father, would you thank you guys so much for joining us today for the Truth Culture Life. And we've had a great conversation with Adam from SBA. Father, would you mind closing us in a prayer?
Certainly. Lord God, we thank you for bringing us together this day. We thank you for opening our eyes to the truths that we must proclaim the gospel of life openly and loudly and use all the means available to us, especially on the social media. We ask you to bless Adam and SBA so that they can help legislate good laws to help our people to enjoy freedom and life and to save all those innocent babies who are being sacrificed on the altar of the evil one. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
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 Guys, thank you so much for joining us for Truth Culture Life today. Father, Sierra, Adam, it's been a pleasure.
God bless
everyone.
From this ride